Power Break by Gridmates. I'm Bethany Rue, Director of Communications and Programming for Gridmates. Welcome to the snack-sized video series that packs a big energy punch. Today, we are joined by Scott McVey and Lauren Donley, co-founders of Millig Design Build, whose vision for improving people's lives through design is changing the way we think about clean energy. Scott, Lauren, welcome. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, as you know, we keep it short and sweet, so we're going to dive right in. Lauren, could you talk to our guests, walk them through a little bit of Decarbonization 101? Let's start there.
Sure, yeah. So decarbonization is a really huge umbrella term. It really can apply to just the process of reducing carbon emissions, and it can be applied to all different sectors like the energy generation, transportation, agriculture, manufacturing, kind of every part of our lives. We need to be making progress in decarbonization. So Millig Design Build, we're an engineering and construction firm. So we really focus on one slice of that pie. We focus on buildings and how they operate. So, globally, building emissions result in about 40% of total global emissions. So we really want to be a leader in decarbonizing that sector. So how do we do that? It may feel like an insurmountable task. I know, sometimes there can be some sort of fear over how hard this thing may be, but really we've kind of broken it down into an approach that you can kind of visualize as a pyramid. So we're going to share the graphic with you, but for folks that are just listening, I'll just explain it or describe it. So really the foundation of that kind of pyramid of decarbonization is energy efficiency. We need to be upgrading systems to be more efficient and making sure that as we operate facilities, every kWh, every therm is being used to do useful work that needs to be done in that facility and that none is wasted. So that effort of load reduction is really the first thing that we need to do. Following that, we focus on electrification and renewables. So if we can get rid of direct burning of natural gas or propane or diesel on the site, use electricity in the form of heat pumps or heat recovery chillers, that sort of thing, then we can also add renewables into the mix and have a non-carbon source of that energy that we use on site. So kind of moving our way up the pyramid, then at the top of the pyramid, we have clean fuels. Sometimes there's some loads left over, some need for high grade heat, or for some reason we still need to use what would traditionally be served by fossil fuels. And so there we're looking to replace those with alternative fuels like biogas or synthetic natural gas. Hydrogen, I think, is going to be a major fuel in the future. And then kind of along that entire pyramid process, we're also looking to reduce emissions related to refrigerants. Refrigerants have a high global warming potential historically, and so we're looking at that. So really, it's sort of a step-by-step process of reducing loads and then finding ways to do the same work that building needs to do, but to do it with low to no carbon emissions.
Okay, that's a very nice comprehensive 101. I love the whole pyramid thing. A pyramid's also a structure. So obviously a lot of what you're doing is, hands-on within the building, but as we know with a lot of these things, the impact goes so much further than that, right? I mean, it impacts the people in the neighborhoods or the people that go to the buildings and then leave. So what are some other ways that you see the impact of what you're doing beyond just the actual structure?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously decarbonization is intended to slow global warming, and that's going to impact everyone. However, really locally at the local level, decarbonization strategies also have real tangible benefits for local communities. So the work that needs to be done in facilities to decarbonize almost always includes renewing antiquated systems and facilities. So through our decarbonization projects, we really seek to improve those facilities for our members of the community. These are the buildings that they live and work and learn in. So some opportunities may include things like improving indoor air quality. We have, we're thinking a lot about reducing transmission of pathogens right now. We're thinking a lot about reducing health impacts of wildfire smoke. We can do that through our projects where we're decarbonizing. We can improve indoor environments like lighting, providing more daylighting for kids in school, which improves learning outcomes. We can improve comfort. Speaking of schools, again, a lot of schools across this country haven't traditionally had cooling. Some don't have ventilation. And, you know, as part of getting to our net zero future, we can also make our buildings healthier, more comfortable. And all of these things will improve physical and mental health, learning outcomes, worker productivity, staff retention. And probably one of the most interesting things that we're seeing coming out of this as well is that it's creating tons of jobs. It's really supporting and driving our economy forward to get to this low carbon future that we need to get to.
Okay, so now let's pull it back a little bit more. Scott, I'm going to pop this one over to you. Now let's talk about an actual project. Let's talk about one of the most challenging projects you've had to do. What made it so challenging, and how did you sort of approach that challenge?
Sure. This was a pretty easy question for me to answer. We're currently engaged in a pretty major decarbonization project for several large pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities across North America and the Caribbean. This particular client has some pretty ambitious goals. These are large industrial pharmaceutical, very energy intensive facilities. They want to reduce their carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Pretty big challenge. On top of that, the scale of these facilities are very massive, million square feet per facility generally. And it's all intensive manufacturing spaces. They emit a lot of carbon. For perspective, one of these facilities emits about 50,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. To kind of put that into layperson's terms, that's equivalent of like 11,000 cars on the road, or how much carbon about 61,000 acres of forests absorb in a year. So pretty large scale carbon emissions, large scale project here. What really made this very challenging is really the critical nature of what's going on in the facilities. They're manufacturing pharmaceuticals. That comes, what comes along with that is some very demanding cleanliness, temperature, and humidity requirements. That said, these facilities are extremely energy intensive. They use about 10 to 20 times the amount of energy that an equivalent commercial building would use of the same size. Large impact decarbonization in this environment required some very creative solutions, really out of the box ways to more efficiently dehumidify these manufacturing spaces. We really focused on aggressively recovering waste heat from their manufacturing processes to then recycle that heat or reuse that heat back in the facility. And we also looked at some pretty large scale solar and cogeneration projects, combining all that into a microgrid that would allow these plants to operate essentially off the electricity grid. The cool thing is, you know, despite all these challenges, we came up with some very practical projects that both improve the process and reliability within these manufacturing facilities, but also our roadmap is going to reduce carbon emissions by over 70% by 2030.
Well, thank you for making our medicine cleaner and greener. It's a very, literally the circle of life. I like it. Well, okay, let's move away from challenging for a minute. What's a favorite project of yours? One that you really just enjoyed the heck out of while you were working on it?
Yeah, so this one from about 10 years ago, before decarbonization was really part of our vocabulary, really. It's on the whole completely different end of the spectrum than the large pharmaceutical example I just gave. This project was for a very small rural county on the border, right on the border between Kansas and Colorado. Not a lot of people have probably been out there. I'm a native Kansan, and it's a very rural area. This project was for a relatively conservative community who, you know, their eye wasn't really on decarbonization. They really wanted more reliable systems in their facility. But what we were able to do is design and implement a very high efficient geothermal. to my knowledge, it was the first of its kind in the United States, a ground coupled or geothermal variable refrigerant flow system. I could nerd out on what that all means, but it's a very extremely efficient HVAC system that we did in this relatively conservative rural community in Western Kansas. So what I'm most proud of there is essentially we were able to accomplish their goals, which was lower maintenance, reliability, and comfort, and do a very environmentally impactful project at the same time.
And you also got to say first in your home state, right? So did it in Kansas first. All right, well, speed round. We're going to end on this. Scott, we'll start with you. If there was one iconic structure that you can get your hands on to do some work on, what would it be?
Well, I love architecture. I've always been in love with architecture, and I've always loved the architecture of downtown Chicago. And it definitely has its share of iconic structures. Most everyone should be familiar with a handful of those. Early in my career, I did a lot of work in downtown Chicago. Many of these facilities are connected through a district utilities. They all get chilled water. A lot of them get chilled water from a central system. I guess I'm not going to answer this question directly, because one thing I always wanted to do while I was working in downtown Chicago was utilize Lake Michigan as a heat to heat and cool that downtown loop.
Well, if anybody's ever been in Lake Michigan, you should have no problem with the cooling aspect of that. Lauren, over to you. What iconic structure would you like to get your hands on?
I would love to get my hands on the Pentagon. I think it might be the biggest single building. It's like 6.5 million square feet, like 30,000 people work there, which is bigger than the town I grew up in. So I think you could do a lot of work there and make a huge impact.
All right, well, if anybody from City of Chicago or Pentagon is watching, call Lauren and Scott. They're ready for you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You can learn more about Lauren, Scott, and Millig in the show notes. Again, this is Power Break by Gridmates, snack size video series, Big Energy Punch. I'm Bethany Root, and it's been great. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.